There's one big difference between being a high performer and a high potential at work. High performers are standout employees. They are great at their job as an individual contributor. They have deep expertise and experience in a specific area. They can be trusted to complete work on time and to a high standard. Because of this, they are essential to any organization, but they are not high potential employees because high potential employees take it one jump further. They not only demonstrate their technical ability like high performers do, but on top of that, they demonstrate their future potential to have a big impact at the organizational level. This is what separates these two categories of employees, and this differentiating factor of future potential is often the reason why high performers find it hard to get promoted into leadership positions. So how can you go from being a high performer to a high potential to someone who demonstrates their future potential in the company? Well, a great starting point for you is to demonstrate learning agility. Learning agility is where you seek out new information or you develop a new skill when you are in an unfamiliar situation like a new task and you don't know what to do. This is a common occurrence if you're expanding beyond your comfort zone and if you're working on a higher level project than what you're used to, which is something that high potentials do often. For example, think of a sales manager who is used to working alone and getting new clients for the company. Now that sales manager is in charge of 3 new recruits who have to be trained and mentored as to the company's sales process. That sales manager has never trained or mentored anyone before. They simply don't know how to do it, but they're going to have to learn how to train and mentor these 3 new recruits if they want to be seen as a high potential employee who can be promoted up to a sales executive position. Because high potentials seek out new challenges and they work out what to do in unfamiliar situations, they have more learning agility than high performers, which makes them a more valuable asset to the organization. And if this value is recognized by upper management, then it can lead to that high potential being promoted into a leadership position. For you, I encourage you to seek out new challenges at work, be curious and flexible in acquiring new knowledge to complete that task successfully. On top of being an agile learner, high potentials also demonstrate their leadership capability. In many cases, they have identified or even have a written list of leadership capabilities that they need to develop and demonstrate for their next level opportunity. For example, the sales manager that I mentioned before needs to train and mentor 3 new recruits. On a more granular level, this means they need to identify tasks that need to be performed, allocate tasks appropriately, delegate effectively, let go of doing all the work themselves, give feedback in a constructive and empathetic way, monitor progress, motivate people when they get stuck, provide support when appropriate, report to their boss on their team's progress. And more importantly, that high potential sales manager needs to stop focusing on their own individual success and instead focus on the group success for the benefit of the company. It's this mental shift from individual success to group success that differentiates high potentials from high performers. For you, start to create a list of leadership capabilities that you need to develop and demonstrate for your next level opportunity. Ask people who are currently in the position that you want. Look at job advertisements for the next level opportunity that you were after. Then keep an eye out for stretch projects that will allow you to learn, develop, and demonstrate your newfound leadership capabilities. Before we move on to the next topic, I want to let you know I've opened up an exclusive channel membership on YouTube where if you join, you will get access to some really cool perks that will help you to stand out from other emerging leaders and show support for my channel. Look for the Join Now button on my channel page and watch the video there where I explain more. Time management skills are incredibly important for leaders, and in my opinion, they are a prerequisite for high potential employees. Time management includes the process of organizing, planning, and dividing your time between different activities. It sounds simple, but in reality, when you have multiple tasks to perform, when you have a schedule that constantly shifts, and when you have pressure from people to get specific tasks done quickly, it can be really difficult to know how to organize and divide your time time between all of those tasks. I see time management and the time you spend at work as something that is in a state of flux. It's always constantly changing and evolving. And because of that, you have to have an agile approach to your time management too. I'm not an expert on time management, but I want to share with you some tips that I use in my work life that might help you as well. On Friday afternoon, plan out what you're going to work on Monday morning when you get back to work the following week. This really helps you to know what area or what tasks you're going to focus on first. Identify your top 3 priorities for the week. Keep it to a manageable level so you don't feel overwhelmed. Identify the tasks involved for each priority and the time required. This will help you to know what is lying ahead. Firmly block out your calendar for high priority tasks to make sure you're not interrupted during this time. Pencil in tasks that need to be performed. I like the pencil approach because that means that I can change things around if I need to. Leave time for learning and development. A lot of people forget to do this, but remember, this is what differentiates and separates high potentials from high performers. If you have any tips on time management that have really helped you in your work life, share them with us in the comments below because I think we can all benefit from them. Having broad experience is something that also separates high potentials from high performers. You see, for high performers, you generally have a very deep expertise in a specific area or a specific skill, and that is what makes you so good at your job. But this deep expertise that you have, it has limits. It boxes you into that area, and it can make it really hard for other people to imagine you doing anything else. Whereas high potentials have a good, if not a deep, level of expertise as well, but because of their time management skill, they have allowed themselves to get involved in more challenging tasks and projects at work, and they have also invested time in learning and development so that they can develop the knowledge and the skill they need to work at that higher level. Essentially, they've broadened their expertise and their competence, which allows others to see them outside of their normal role. Going back to the story of the sales manager, so for all of the leadership capabilities they needed to develop, which we talked about in point 2 of this video, they invested time to learn and to develop these skills either by reading a book or by taking a course. Then they publicly demonstrated that they had these skills by talking about them in their next team meeting. They shared with everyone the tasks that they had delegated to the people in their team and the progress that those people were making. This helped that sales manager's boss to see that they have a wide range of expertise, and more importantly, they have future leadership capability. For you, try to broaden your skills by getting involved in new projects in places where you can learn and develop these new skills, and don't forget to talk about them in your next team meeting. Long-term vision is another area that separates high potentials from high performers, because when you are a high performer, you are generally an individual contributor where you are concerned with your job and your responsibilities only. You don't really look beyond that. You don't really look at the big picture for the team or for the company. But this is what leaders are focused on, and you should be too if you want to advance into leadership. You need to be curious about things that are at that leadership level, and the only way to do this is to develop a long-term vision and to be curious beyond your job. If this is the first time you're really thinking about this, then I recommend that you start small. Learn about the main goals and priorities for the company. Speak to your manager and ask how your job fits into the department or the company's goals. Ask co-workers what they're working on and why their job is important. Speak to people in different teams and ask them these same questions as well. Once you've started off small, then you can go bigger. And this is where you look at your competitors. What are their priorities? What are their goals? You can also look at your industry. What are the opportunities or challenges facing your particular industry? And you can go bigger again. This is where you might look at similar companies in other countries. And you can look at the opportunities that they have. What are their goals, their priorities? What are the challenges that they face? In a way, this is something that can definitely take you down the rabbit hole, so it's really up to you to decide when you have learnt enough. But regardless, putting yourself through this process, it will really help you to develop your long-term vision and to broaden your thinking as well. Now let's shift the focus and talk about quantifying results. So high performers generally have it easy when it comes to tracking and quantifying the results that they produce at work. When they're assigned a project, if they have a good manager, the results will be outlined for them. It could be they need to finish a project by a specific date, they need to get a certain number of clients for the company, or they need to make a certain amount of money for the company. All of these results are quantifiable, meaning they are easy to track. They're easy for the high performer to track and also for their manager to track as well. Now, the difficulty with high potentials is that a lot of the results they produce and a lot of the things that make them stand out, they're not quantifiable and they're not trackable. We'll talk about it a little more in the next point, but skills in emotional intelligence are incredibly important for high potentials, but they're really difficult for leaders or for managers to track and to assess. I mean, how do you tell if somebody has empathy at work? How can you track if someone has humility? And how can you assess if someone has active listening skills? All of these things are so intangible. They are really difficult to be quantified and to be tracked. So this makes it hard when you are a high potential for people to actually track your progress and the results that you produce at work. So high potentials need to find a way to quantify and to track all of these value-adding skills that they've developed. And this is how I recommend you do it. You start to make a list of the non-technical skills that you need to develop as a high performer. You identify situations in which you use those non-technical skills. You record how those skills helped you in your job, and then you talk about that in your performance review. Probably one of the biggest areas where high potentials are distinguished from high performers is their ability to be emotionally intelligent. Not just to have self-awareness and an understanding of how their behavior and actions impact others, but to be able to empower others so they can achieve workplace excellence. Studies show that IQ, or intelligence quotient, was once considered gold standard in determining success. But now, new studies show that IQ only determines 20% of success and EQ determines 80% of success. It's this elevated level of intelligence in emotions and people skills that help high potentials to be seen as someone who can have a big impact in the organization. Because at the end of the day, organizations are made up of people working together, people collaborating, people getting things done. And all of this needs to be managed and nurtured by the right people with the right skills. If you're wondering what skills you need to develop in emotional intelligence to be seen as a high potential, well, here is a list to get you started. Self-awareness, empathy, humility, relationship building skills, active listening, resilience, effective communication, cultural sensitivity, dealing with change, handling team conflict, crisis management. And if you want to know why good leaders fail at people skills, then you need to watch this video up here. If you did like this video and you got some handy tips in it, please subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you are notified every time I release a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week in another video.